The first time I noticed something was wrong, it wasn't a thunderclap moment. It was subtle, so subtle that if I had blinked, I might have missed it. My name is Daniel Cross, 34 years old, financial consultant by profession, quiet by nature. I'm the type of man who notices small things: a moved coffee mug, a new perfume in the house, an odd glance exchanged between people who think no one's watching. And maybe that's why, sitting at our mahogany dining table in our cozy suburban home one ordinary Tuesday evening, I sensed it. A crack in the perfect image of my life. My wife, Elena, was stirring her tea absently, her mind clearly somewhere else. Normally, we'd chat about our days, mindless things, really. Traffic jams, grocery lists, annoying coworkers. But tonight, she was distant. Silent. Eyes fixed on the swirling liquid in her cup, like it held all the answers she couldn't say aloud. I leaned back in my chair, pretending not to notice. "Long day?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch, before offering a mechanical smile.
"Yeah, just tired," she said.
It should have ended there. People get tired. Life is exhausting. But something in her voice was off. Hollow. Like she was reciting lines from a script she didn't believe in anymore. The house felt unusually cold that night, despite the fireplace crackling warmly nearby. A draft I couldn't locate whispered around my ankles, making me pull my sweater tighter. I told myself it was just the change of seasons, but deep down, something gnawed at me. After dinner, Elena disappeared into the bedroom. I sat there alone, swirling the ice in my whiskey glass, watching the way the amber liquid caught the light. She usually curled up next to me on the couch. We'd binge some mindless TV, laugh at dumb jokes, plan our weekend. Tonight, I heard the door lock click softly, a whisper of finality. I stared at the locked door for longer than I should have. "Something's wrong," a small voice in my head said. I shook it off. Maybe she really was just tired. Maybe I was reading too much into it. The next morning, the world carried on like nothing happened. Birds chirped outside the window. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the house. Elena was bustling around, her hair in a messy bun, humming an unfamiliar tune under her breath. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it had been nothing. Just one of those weird, off nights couples sometimes have. No big deal. But as I kissed her cheek goodbye, I caught a scent that stopped me cold. Cologne. Not hers. Something sharp and musky, nothing like the floral notes she usually wore. She noticed my hesitation and smiled brightly. Too brightly. "Have a good day, babe," she chirped, shoving me out the door with a playful push. As I drove to work, I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she tried a new fabric softener. Maybe one of her coworkers hugged her. Maybe. The seed of doubt had been planted. That night, the atmosphere shifted again. Elena was overly attentive, laughing too hard at my jokes, insisting we open a bottle of wine, touching my arm more often than usual. It felt rehearsed, like she was trying to distract me. From what, though? I tried to match her energy, forcing smiles and light conversation, but inside, my mind was a spinning vortex of confusion. Later, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, I heard the faint click of her phone screen illuminating. She was texting someone. In the dark. Secretively. I squeezed my eyes shut, heart pounding. I wanted so badly to trust her. To believe the best. To smother that ugly voice whispering, "Something's wrong. Something's wrong." The next few days followed a strange pattern. Normalcy on the surface. Breakfasts shared, bills paid, lazy Sunday mornings in bed. But underneath, there was a current of tension. A stiltedness in her laugh. A sudden defensiveness when I asked about her day. A secretive smile when she thought I wasn't looking. I found myself tiptoeing around my own home, analyzing every gesture, every word. Was that a guilty look, or was I imagining things? Was she pulling away from my touch, or was she just distracted? The questions gnawed at me, and yet I said nothing. One evening, I arrived home earlier than expected. The house was dark except for the faint glow coming from the upstairs bedroom. I padded quietly up the stairs, every instinct telling me to announce myself, but something stopped me. Through the partially open door, I saw Elena sitting on the edge of our bed, phone clutched in her hands, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. It wasn't the smile of a tired wife. It was the giddy, breathless smile of someone infatuated. My heart lodged in my throat. I stepped back silently and retreated downstairs, heart hammering against my ribs. When Elena finally came down, she acted like nothing happened. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. But I knew, in that aching, hollow place inside, that something was breaking. Cracks spiderwebbing through the facade of our life together. And the worst part? She didn't even notice. The days that followed felt like I was walking through a haze. Nothing seemed to fit, yet everything felt oddly out of place. The world moved around me in a steady rhythm, but I was no longer a part of it. I was observing, detached, calculating. The once warm and familiar environment of my home had turned cold, sterile, like a room in which secrets were being whispered behind closed doors. I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong, that I was missing pieces of a puzzle, and that Elena was somehow playing a part in this growing mystery. I tried to dismiss it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe this was all in my head. But as the days passed, the unease only deepened. The subtle changes in Elena's behavior were beginning to take shape into something more alarming. It was the little things, the tiny cracks that appeared in her once impeccable facade. At first, it was just the way she kept her phone closer to her body whenever I was near. Then there was the way she would suddenly leave the room when a text message pinged. The kind of thing couples don't usually hide from each other. But here she was, hiding the simplest things from me. One afternoon, as I sat at the kitchen table, the sunlight slanting through the windows, I noticed something strange. Elena had left her phone on the counter while she went to the other room. The screen was facing up, and I could see the notification banner flashing, a single name, Chris. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't recognize it. Not someone I'd ever heard her mention before. My heart began to beat faster. My fingers itched to reach for her phone. I wanted to check. I needed to check. But I knew that if I did, if I crossed that line, there would be no going back. I told myself I wasn't going to invade her privacy. Not yet. I needed more proof. I couldn't be certain from just a name on a screen, no matter how suspicious it seemed. But the seed had been planted, and it started to grow into something ugly. Later that evening, I tried to bring it up casually. Elena was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine, her usual calm demeanor hiding behind a fake smile. I walked in, pretending to browse through my phone, not making eye contact. The tension in the air was so thick that I could almost feel it suffocating me. So, who's Chris? I asked, trying to sound nonchalant, like it was just another casual question. She froze. I saw her eyes widen slightly. Then she looked away, taking an unusually long time to respond. Oh, he's just an old friend from work, she said, her voice tight. You wouldn't know him. I nodded, but my mind was racing. An old friend? Why was she acting so distant? Why couldn't she look me in the eye when she said that? The conversation quickly shifted, as if she'd read my suspicion and decided to throw a diversion my way. We spent the rest of the evening in a surface-level discussion about things we usually talked about. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just touched a nerve. I felt the heaviness in the air, the weight of words unsaid. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, pretending to be lost in thought, but every inch of my body was alive with anxiety. The name Chris repeated over and over in my mind like a mantra. I could feel my pulse quicken, my skin growing hot with each second of silence between us. I had to know. The next day, when Elena was at work, I couldn't stop myself. I did it. I picked up her phone from the counter, gently, carefully, as if I were handling a fragile object. I unlocked it, bypassing her password with ease, my heart in my throat as I scrolled through the recent messages. And there it was. A message from Chris. Can't wait to see you tonight. 8 p.m. at the usual place. I miss you. It was all there. The unmistakable tone, the intimate familiarity. The word, miss. The way the message made my stomach churn, my hands tremble. I could feel the anger building in my chest, rising like a tidal wave, but I fought to stay calm, to maintain control. My worst fears had been confirmed. Elena was cheating on me. With this Chris. I closed the phone, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. My chest felt tight, like a vice was squeezing all the air out of my lungs. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I knew that would be pointless. I needed to think this through. I needed to plan. For the first time, I realized the depths of the betrayal. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything. The lies, the deception, the coldness that had begun to fester between us. I stood up, pacing back and forth in the living room. The house felt unfamiliar. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. How long had this been going on? Was it just Chris, or was there someone else? And why hadn't I seen the signs sooner? But the real question, the one that haunted me, was what I was going to do now. How could I continue living with someone who had deceived me so completely? How could I look her in the eye again? A part of me wanted to confront her right away, tear everything out in the open, and make her face the consequences. But another part of me, the quieter part, knew that I needed to be smart. I couldn't give her the chance to lie again. I needed to make sure I had every piece of the puzzle. I sat back down at the kitchen table, my hands shaking. My entire life felt like it had shifted under me, like the foundation of everything I had known was crumbling. I couldn't go back to being the same man I had been yesterday. I wasn't the same man anymore. And when Elena came home later that night, everything would change. There would be no pretending, no more games. I was done. The air in the house felt thick with anticipation, like the calm before a storm. Each day felt like I was walking on eggshells, and every minute was stretched out in agonizing silence. I could feel the weight of the truth closing in on me. Every word Elena spoke felt rehearsed. Every gesture seemed calculated. She was hiding something, I knew it. But what could I do? I had seen the messages, and yet I couldn't bring myself to confront her immediately. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe, even though everything inside me told me that belief was a lie. I clung to the hope that I had misunderstood something, that maybe there was an innocent explanation. But deep down, I knew that this hope was slowly dying, crushed under the weight of the reality I was starting to accept. The days dragged on, but with each passing moment, I felt more and more detached from Elena. It was as if I was floating outside my own life, looking in at a woman I once knew, but no longer recognized. She moved through our shared space like a ghost, and I couldn't help but wonder, how long had she been lying to me? One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. The lies, the games, the uncertainty, it was all too much. I needed answers. And I needed them now. I made up my mind that this would be the night. I couldn't live with this twisted uncertainty hanging over me any longer. Elena was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, humming softly to herself as if nothing had changed. Her movements were calm, almost too calm. I watched her, the way her back was turned, the knife she was holding to chop vegetables. She seemed oblivious to the storm that was brewing inside me. But I knew, in that moment, that she wasn't the only one who had been hiding. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. My voice was tight with the pressure building in my chest. Elena, we need to talk. She turned, her expression unreadable. What about? She asked, trying to sound casual, but I could see the faint flicker of tension in her eyes. I know, I said flatly. I know what's been going on. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw a flash of fear. It was brief, but it was there. The mask was cracking. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. I walked toward her, my gaze never leaving hers. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me, the weight of the words I had to say pressing against my chest. I know about Chris. I know about the messages. About the lies. You've been hiding it from me this whole time. For a moment, there was silence. The sound of the knife hitting the cutting board seemed unnaturally loud in the stillness. Elena's face went pale, and she quickly set the knife down, her hands trembling. She swallowed hard, as if struggling to find the right words. Elena, I whispered her name, my voice cracking. How long? How long has this been going on? She stared at me, her lips parted as though she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Sorry? Sorry doesn't change anything. You've been lying to me. To us. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I almost felt a pang of sympathy. But the anger bubbling inside me drowned it out. I couldn't believe she was standing there, looking so fragile, so remorseful, when the reality was that I had been living with a stranger. I never wanted to hurt you, she said softly, but there was no conviction in her voice. The words felt empty. It just happened. I didn't know what to do. Didn't know what to do? I repeated, my voice rising. What do you mean, didn't know what to do? You made a choice, Elena. Over and over again. You chose him over me. The room felt suffocating. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts.
How could she do this to me?
How long had she been seeing him? What else was she hiding? I watched her face as she stood there, trying to form an explanation, but the words never came. It was like she had been caught in a lie so big that she couldn't unravel it fast enough. And deep down, I knew that whatever explanation she gave me wouldn't be enough to fix the damage that had been done. I need to know everything, I said, my voice cold, detached. Tell me the truth, Elena. Everything. She hesitated, her gaze flicking to the floor. Then, as if finally giving in, she sighed deeply and began to speak. It started a few months ago. I was feeling distant, I guess. You were always so busy, and I felt like I wasn't a priority anymore. Chris was just someone I met, someone who made me feel like I mattered again. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I pushed it away. So, you found someone else to make you feel important? That's your excuse. Her face twisted with guilt.
No, it wasn't about that.
It wasn't about him, it was about what I was missing, about how I was feeling invisible, and… You chose him, Elena. You chose to betray me, to tear us apart. She fell silent, the tears streaming down her face now. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved, was crumbling in front of me. But it didn't matter anymore. The betrayal was too deep. It had cut too far into my soul. I stood there for a moment, watching her, feeling something shift inside me. Something broken, something irrevocable. Everything is broken now, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't fix this. I won't try. The silence in the room was unbearable, a heavy blanket that suffocated me. I stared at Elena, who was now visibly breaking down in front of me. Her tears were no longer just signs of guilt, but a desperate cry for understanding, for forgiveness. But I couldn't give it to her. The betrayal was too deep, and the weight of it crushed any sympathy I might have had left. Is this really how it's going to end? I asked, my voice low and cold. It wasn't a question I was seeking an answer to, but I asked it anyway. I wanted to hear her justify it, even though I already knew there was no justification. Elena wiped her tears, her face crumpling as she tried to gather herself. I'm sorry, I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you, I really do. I felt alone, and he was there. He made me feel wanted. Her words were almost suffocating to hear. He made me feel wanted. It was as though the entire foundation of our relationship was nothing more than a fragile construct, easily shattered by a man who was nothing more than a fleeting distraction. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to let her know just how much she had destroyed with her selfishness. But instead, I found myself frozen. My body was numb, my mind racing, and my heart was torn in two. It was so much worse than I had ever imagined. Not only had she betrayed me physically, but emotionally as well. She had let someone else occupy the space in her heart that was once mine. That fact was like a dagger to my chest. I don't know who you are anymore, I muttered, the words escaping before I could stop them. Her eyes widened, a flicker of realization crossing her face. What do you mean? What are you saying? I shook my head slowly, my mind reeling. I don't know who you are, Elena. The person I thought I knew doesn't exist. Everything was a lie. This whole time, I trusted you. I gave you everything, and you threw it all away. I could feel the tightness in my chest, the familiar pang of betrayal twisting into something darker. Anger, hurt, resentment. It was all flooding in, drowning me, until I was consumed by it. I don't think I can ever look at you the same way again, I said quietly, though the words held a heavy finality to them. Elena's face twisted in agony as she took a step toward me, her hand outstretched as if reaching for something that no longer existed. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost and I… Stop. The words slipped out before I could stop it, sharp and cold. I don't want your excuses. You had a choice, Elena. And you chose him. Over me. Her lips trembled, and I could see her trying to hold herself together, but the cracks in her facade were too wide now. I'm sorry, so sorry. Please don't leave me. I stepped back, distancing myself from her both physically and emotionally. My heart was torn, but my mind was made up. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a fundamental breach of trust, something that couldn't be repaired. Don't ask me to stay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Don't ask me to pretend that everything can go back to the way it was. Because it can't. Her eyes filled with more tears, her shoulders shaking as she crumbled to her knees. Please, I love you.
Don't leave me.
I made a mistake. I was weak, but it didn't mean anything. I watched her for a moment, the sight of her broken, vulnerable state almost pulling me back in.
But something in me snapped.
This wasn't love. This wasn't the woman I had once known. Love. I repeated, my voice rising. You call that love? You betrayed me with him, and now you're crying over it, asking for my forgiveness? How am I supposed to forgive you when you've taken everything from me? I paused, the air thick with tension, and then the words I had been holding back for so long finally broke free. I trusted you, Elena. I believed in us. But you shattered that belief. And now I'm done. The words hung in the air, a final blow that left nothing but silence in their wake. Elena's sobs grew louder, and she crawled toward me, but I didn't move. I couldn't move. Something inside me had hardened, and I felt the last remnants of my love for her evaporating in the cold air. She reached out for my hand, but I jerked it away. The touch that once comforted me now felt like fire, a burn I couldn't escape. I'm leaving, I said, the words cutting through the suffocating silence. And when I leave, I'm leaving with nothing. The words struck her like a physical blow. She gasped, shaking her head as if she couldn't process what I had just said. You can't do this to me. But it was too late. The finality in my tone was undeniable. I can. And I will. I turned on my heel and walked toward the door, feeling the weight of everything I was walking away from. My marriage. The love I thought was real. The future we had planned. As I reached for the door, I heard her call my name, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. The door swung open, and I stepped into the unknown, leaving behind everything I once held dear. And as I walked out of the house, I felt an eerie calm wash over me. This wasn't the end I had expected, but it was the end I needed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The days after I left were nothing short of surreal. I thought that once I walked away, once I finally left Elena behind, everything would be clearer. But as the dust settled, the weight of my decision began to grow heavier with each passing hour. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't stay there, in that house, in that life that had been a lie for so long. The house I had once called home now felt like a prison, an endless reminder of everything I had lost. The bed that we had shared, the kitchen where we had spent hours talking about our future, it all felt suffocating now. I could still feel the faint traces of her presence, even though she was gone. The smell of her perfume lingered in the air like a ghost, a constant reminder of my broken trust. But it wasn't just the physical absence that hurt. It was the emotional aftermath. The feeling of being betrayed, used, and discarded. I had invested so much into our relationship, only to find out that it had all been a facade. The worst part? I still loved her. Even after everything she had done, even after all the lies, I couldn't deny that part of me still wanted to fix things, still hoped that maybe, just maybe, she would wake up and realize what she had done. But deep down, I knew it was too late. The damage was done. My heart was broken beyond repair. Days turned into weeks, and the emptiness grew. I tried to move on, tried to focus on work, on friends, on anything that would take my mind off the wreckage of my life. But it was impossible. Every corner I turned, every conversation I had, led me back to the same painful truth. Elena had been the love of my life, and now, she was nothing more than a distant memory. It was in the middle of this turmoil that I received a call that shook me to my core. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something told me that I needed to pick up. I hesitated for a moment before pressing the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I asked, my voice heavy with suspicion. "Is this Michael?" a voice asked. It was calm, too calm. "I'm sorry to call you like this, but I think you need to hear something." My pulse quickened. There was something in the tone of the voice that made my stomach drop. "Who is this?" I demanded. "My name is David. I think you know who I am." The voice paused for a moment. "I'm the guy your wife was seeing behind your back." The words hit me like a slap. David. The man who had been the source of all my pain. The one who had taken what was mine. 1,000 emotions rushed through me. Anger, disbelief, confusion. But beneath it all, there was a strange sense of dread. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, barely able to keep my voice steady. "I don't think you understand," David continued, his voice low and urgent. "You don't know the full story. Elena wasn't just cheating on you. There's something much worse going on." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "What are you talking about?" "There's a lot more to this than you think. And I think you deserve to know the truth," he said. "I never meant for things to go this far, but there's something you don't know about Elena. She's been hiding something from you, something big. I don't even know how to tell you this, but—" David's voice trailed off, as though he was hesitant, unsure of whether to continue. I could feel the tension building in my chest, the need to know what he was about to say pushing me forward. "You need to listen carefully," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "Elena isn't who you think she is. The affair? It wasn't just about her needing attention. She's been planning something much more dangerous." I felt a cold chill run through me. "What do you mean?" David paused, then sighed deeply. "I don't know how much she told you about her past, but there's something she's been keeping from you. Something about her family. There's money involved, big money. And Elena wasn't just cheating on you for attention. She was doing it because she was setting something up. She's planning to take everything you have. And I think she's been working with someone else. Someone dangerous." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The ground beneath me felt unstable, as though everything I had known was now crumbling away. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with a million questions. "Are you telling me Elena's been planning to steal from me?" I asked, my voice trembling. David didn't answer right away. He was quiet for a long moment, as though considering whether to reveal the truth. When he finally spoke, his words were chilling. "Not just steal from you, Michael. She's been working with her family to take you down. It's been in the works for months. The affair? It was all part of her plan. She was using you." I felt my stomach turn. It was like I had been hit by a freight train. I wanted to scream, to let out the rage that was building inside of me, but all I could do was stand there, frozen in disbelief. "And the worst part? I think they've already started," David added. "The thing she's been doing, it's bigger than you think." The phone call ended abruptly, and as I stood there, holding the receiver in my hand, I realized something. Elena's betrayal was far deeper, far darker than I had ever imagined. What had once seemed like a simple affair was now a full-scale operation against me. My world was no longer just broken, it was shattered beyond recognition. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know where to go, or how to fight back against the lies, the manipulation, the deceit that had been surrounding me for so long. But one thing was certain, I couldn't let her win. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about survival. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind was a blur of thoughts, an overwhelming rush of emotions. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, Elena's face, twisted by lies and deceit, a mask of betrayal that had somehow convinced me to trust her. But the truth, now so raw and undeniable, gnawed at me relentlessly. The call from David had shattered everything. The man she had been with, the hidden agenda, the dangerous plans, none of it was part of the life I had thought we shared. It felt like I had been living in a dream, only to wake up in a nightmare. I had to act. But what was I supposed to do? The weight of the decision was crushing. The longer I let Elena manipulate me, the more I lost. I couldn't let that happen. I needed to be strong. I needed to regain control of my life. But I didn't know where to start. The more I thought about David's words, the clearer everything became. Elena wasn't just playing me, she had been playing a far more dangerous game. And the more I reflected on the small, seemingly insignificant details, the missed calls, the cryptic messages, her evasive behavior, it all added up to something much darker. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was part of something bigger, something far more sinister. I knew that confronting her again would be pointless. I had already tried to talk to her, to reason with her, but she had deflected every question, every concern. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, my dignity, my future, and my sanity. I walked into my living room, pacing back and forth. I needed to think, to plan my next move carefully. But there was something else eating away at me. David had told me that Elena's family was involved, that there was money at stake. Was she really trying to take everything from me? The very thought of it made my blood boil. I had worked hard for everything I had. My business, my savings, my house, these were not just material possessions. They were my legacy, my security. If she and her family were planning to take it all, they would regret it. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. My hands shook as I dialed the number, but I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let them destroy everything I had worked for. I wasn't going to let Elena walk away unscathed. The phone rang a few times before my lawyer picked up. "Michael? What's going on?" he asked, sensing the urgency in my voice. "I need you to do something for me," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I want to take legal action. I want to make sure she can't touch anything I've built. I need to protect myself." My lawyer hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure about this, Michael? You're talking about a full legal battle. It'll get messy." "I don't care," I snapped. "I want her to pay for what she's done. And I want her to pay dearly." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before my lawyer responded. "I understand. I'll start the paperwork right away. But be prepared. This is going to be a fight." I ended the call, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. Elena had chosen her path, and now so had I. But just as I was beginning to feel some semblance of control, the doorbell rang. It was late, too late for any casual visitors. My heart raced as I approached the door, wondering who could possibly be on the other side. I wasn't expecting anyone. Certainly not Elena, not after everything that had happened. But as I opened the door, I froze. Standing there in front of me, looking more disheveled than I had ever seen her, was Elena. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She looked like a shell of the woman I once knew, her entire demeanor frantic, desperate. She had clearly been crying, but it wasn't the tears that had me frozen in place. It was the look of fear in her eyes. I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. I felt a surge of anger, but I kept my cool. "Talk to me? After everything you've done? What could you possibly have to say?" "I know what you're thinking," she said, her voice shaking. "But you have to believe me, Michael. It's not what you think. Please, just hear me out." I didn't let her in. I stood there, blocking the door, my mind racing. She was trying to manipulate me again. She was trying to pull me back into her web of lies. But there was something in her eyes, something that made me hesitate. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice cold. "Elena," I trailed off, suddenly unsure of how to proceed. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, stood before me now, completely broken. But the brokenness wasn't from guilt, it was from fear. Something had happened. Something was wrong.
I
was forced into this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Michael, it wasn't just an affair. It was all part of something bigger, something that I couldn't control.
You have to believe me.
I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want any of this. I was blackmailed." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Blackmailed? She had been manipulated, used as a pawn in something far beyond her control? The shock of it left me speechless. Elena had never once mentioned anything about this, not when she had been caught, not when I had confronted her. But now, standing before me, she seemed like a woman who had been broken by forces larger than herself. "What do you mean?" I finally managed to ask. She took a shaky breath, her hands trembling. "They told me that if I didn't do it, they would destroy you. They knew about your business, Michael. They knew about everything you've built. And they said if I didn't comply, they would ruin you." I stood there, stunned. My mind was reeling. The truth was more twisted than I could have ever imagined. Elena hadn't betrayed me just for her own gain. She had been forced into it. The people who had blackmailed her, they were the real enemy. But even as I processed this new revelation, a chilling thought struck me. If they had been manipulating Elena, they could have been manipulating others too. My entire life had been controlled by invisible forces. "Who are they?" I demanded, my voice tight with fury and fear. She looked at me, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't know. I never met them face to face. But I think it's too late. They're already coming for you." And just like that, I realized the full scope of the danger I was in. It wasn't just Elena. It was them, the ones who had been pulling the strings, controlling everything behind the scenes. The nightmare was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning.